Good evening and welcome to the July 10th meeting of the Planning Policy Commission. Thank you all for being here, and the first thing on our agenda is the approval of the minutes. Has everybody read the minutes? Can I have a motion to approve?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Tonight we're going to continue our discussion on the comp plan, and tonight we're going to talk about parks, recreation, trails, and open space. So, Trish, please enlighten us.
And again, we're going to do this in the format that we've been doing the other elements, where the I have your name tag. I didn't see you sneak in. I have your name tag. Anyway, we're going to do this like we've done the other elements, where we do the really brief overview from a high level to get you sort of feeling good about what the purpose of the park element, how it relates to other pieces of the plan and the bigger park element. And then once we have all your comments, we'll put that into the bigger update, and it'll come back to you later on in the year for your review. So it's sort of one of those two-step processes where you look at the goals first and the vision, then you'll look at it in a meatier version, and then hopefully before the end of the year we'll have the big public hearing on all of the finalized elements. And my little clicker. Well, okay then. This might be a really short presentation. Okay, well that works too. We talked a little bit before the cameras started rolling in that the city has different plans for different purposes, and one of them is the big parks, recreation, trails, and open space plan that is governed by the Parks Department, and they do a super good job with the parks plan, the big parks plan. I'll talk about, there's a big parks plan and there's our comprehensive plan element. So I'm going to be using those two terms, and if I ever am getting confusing, just say, wait Trish, we're confused on which one you're talking about. The big plan is what the Parks Department and the city use for getting grants, open space grants, recreation grants, wildlife corridor. I mean, there's a whole plethora of places that they can get money, and we've been very successful in the past to get grant money for our parks and recreation programs. And one of the criteria to have a plan that is allowable to get the grants is you have to update it every 5 years. And part of the update is this huge public outreach to the community on how are we doing, what kinds of facilities do you want, what kind of classes do you want, are we providing the right kinds of this and that. It's a huge outreach that the Parks Department does. It's with phone calls and surveys and all sorts of things. And they do that for the big plan as part of the requirements for the grant to be able to get the grants. We don't do that for the element. The lucky part for us for the element is that the Parks Department and the community that they work with and the Parks Board go through this huge updating process of the inventory of the facilities, the survey as I mentioned, and then they have a really detailed plan. And we take the policy pieces of that for our element. So our element is fairly short and sweet compared to the huge volume that the Parks Department uses to go out for grant funding. So they're very different, but they're connected. They're not contradictory in any way, of course, because they couldn't be. But they are separate but complementary. And you have a question?
No, you answered it with the
Okay.
complementary portion.
Yeah. And the growth management says that that it's real short what the element has to have in it. It has to talk about what facilities do we need in the 10-year growth projections, what do we need to have sort of getting ready to fund or be thinking about funding in the next 10 years when all the, when the people are coming. We need to figure that out, and we need to evaluate how we're going to coordinate with other jurisdictions or groups to provide those services and facilities and open spaces for our community. So it's pretty basic what we have to provide for the element. The Park Department, though, the first one, the big plan, they have to do a lot more specific kinds of inventorying, as I said, community outreach for their requirements. The piece that's sort of been a tough one this year is we are supposed to be hiring a parks planner to help with this effort because we lost our past parks planner. That's too many P's. And so we've gone out. I've heard from our director that we're supposed to get somebody in August. So this hasn't started yet. So this is sort of Trish's translation on the existing park element and what the goals and visions could be, they are now. Just because I know so many of you are new, that I thought this would be a good chance for you to sort of dive in gently to what we have on the books now, so that when we talk about how it might change or how it may evolve for the next population growth spurt, that you'll already be versed in what's on the books now and what the vision and the goals are now. So that's it's sort of like an educational background launching tonight. And then when the Parks Department is up to speed and has their new planner on board, we can have sort of their version of how they're moving forward when that time comes. This is what we've been working from all along, is that a goal is the aim, you know, that big picture that you want. The policy is sort of how do you get there, and implementation is actually how it happens, how it appears in front of us. And I still have trouble with this because to me they're all kind of similar. So I put this up as much for me as for reminding us all. Why are parks important? I mean, this is one of the easiest ones in our whole comp plan. To me, it's like the mom and apple pie of the whole. I mean, no one ever has a complaint with, you know, other than we don't have enough. That's the only complaint really we hear. Most people are, you know, if you're having a bad day, go visit the Parks Department, because just their world is just a happy, fun world over there. It's you know, they've got open space, they're outside, they're playing, they've got happy kids, they've got programs, they've got, I mean, it's just a really great thing, and Issaquah has just a fabulous, fabulous set of programs. In fact, in the 2008 benchmarks that King County did, Issaquah had the second highest in King County per capita open space. And for a little town, you know, if you look around, we have a lot of public open space for as many people as we have, and we're really proud of that we've, you know, we're on the edge of the urban boundary, and we've made it really clear that the open space is really important to us. Even though we're right on the line, we still want the open space in the community, not just, you know, ringing around the community. So we're really proud of that. The parks provide not only the beauty, but environmental protection, and it does help us to buffer that rural area that's just outside our border. Just stop that. The vision that we have in the existing plan, I sort of paraphrased and kind of mushed it around a little bit. We want to continue to provide the high quality, safe, accessible areas that we have. We want to link them through greenbelt and greenways, and preserve the natural resources that we have. Obviously, the creeks are so important to us for the salmon and our hatchery, and also the forested hillsides. As we grow, we have no net loss in there of parks. I think that's important, that the bigger we are, we want to be sure that we continue to provide parks and recreation and trails for those that are coming, and not to lose anything that we have now, and to keep being the beautiful city that people think of when they think of Issaquah, with, you know, Gilman Boulevard and just the beautiful landscaped areas that we have and open space. This is another little summary of the GMA requirements, that it's consistent with the capital facility plan, which is actually how we fund things, how we fund the parks and rec pieces, and also that we have a demand for at least 10 years, that we have that figured out in the plan, and evaluate what we have now and how we would get it using our other partners like the school district, the state, and the county, to make sure that we're doing everything we can to provide the services and facilities. Now the first one, and again I have in the top piece in italics what the section would address, because when I looked at the goal, they didn't seem to be big enough until I looked through the plan to the existing element to see what all was in this one, the no net loss. And this talks about the growth projections. It talks about how we would get the land, and you know, that some of the parks would come through developers and development. Some would come from city purchasing it through bonds or other ways of getting money. and how to make sure that we're using the parks and facilities most efficiently by, using like this, helping, the school district, we can use theirs, and, using King County, and sort of everybody working together to make sure that we're using everything that we can use as efficiently as possible.
Trish? Isn't that really 2 goals?
What, the no net loss?
Yeah.
It could be. I was thinking that it's, you don't lose what you have, and you make sure that you keep acquiring it as you
Well,
go.
I understand that, but to me, it would be, it's really important, the no net loss.
Okay.
As new buildings come in and their requirements of putting in parks, that we don't take advantage of the parks that they're, so we need the no net loss in
Okay.
there. But I look at it as 2 different goals. You're just combining the 2. And it's sort of, to me, it doesn't make it as clear, it doesn't make it as important by having 2 goals. It's just me.
Okay, so the one would be no net loss, and the other one would be to make sure we increase them as we grow?
Yeah.
Okay. Does that work for folks?
That works. And no net loss, is that a defined term in the GMA as far as?
That's one of ours.
Okay, so how are we defining that? Is that percentage of population versus square footage, or is that current square footage?
It's a good one. It started with, we added a policy, I guess it was a while ago, for no net loss of landscaping on Gilman Boulevard. And then because we always talked about that, but it was never written anywhere. So the council adopted a policy, and then every time Public Works, it was usually Public Works, would come in for a new left turn queue, we would say, but you have to put the trees somewhere else. If you're going to cut them down or move the landscaping for the new left turn queue, it's got to go somewhere else. So it made the council go, so it was actually a square footage. So if you cut out this part of the left hand, like by Lombardi's or wherever, you had to put the trees somewhere else along Gilman Boulevard so there'd be no net loss. I think that's the parks, it's the same way, that if we need to expand a road or expand a right-of-way or whatever, that land or that something would go in another park or in another place. As far as I know, we haven't had to deal with that yet because nobody's come in to get rid of anything or to pave over anything, so we haven't had to do the math yet and figure out where it would go.
Okay.
But you're right, we probably should contemplate if something does come in, how would we?
Yeah, and that may be just something to add as a policy as we get further along, but I think that does, at least how it's currently defined, just kind of enunciate the need to split out Goal A into 2 separate goals.
I would suggest actually, because I had the same concern, I know that loss can be a lot of things, can be acreage, can be function, which we're not considering the different function in the park can be recreational, can be habitat, can be whatever, just open space or whatnot. So these should probably specify no net loss of surface area or area. But what do we do about? Do we have an inventory of the different functions of the parks, and are we trying to have no net loss there as well, or is that?
Right, we have an inventory of all the parks and facilities and what they're used for. If there's 3 picnic tables, or if there's a wetland bog, or if there's whatever it is that's out there is in the inventory.
So we also would be looking at no net loss of function as well. So
Right.
if a picnic table is being removed, you would create a picnic table
Right.
somewhere else.
I'm not the expert on it, but I'm thinking that's how it goes.
Well, but
But I
we could-
can ask, right.
Is there, and I don't know to what extent we want to, I guess, enshrine the number of picnic tables or the number of soccer fields or whatnot, but that's certainly something that's worth
Right.
talking about.
Right, and in our level of service calculations that it looks like Jason's kind of touched on a little bit, we have the first inventory that we go from back when we started that has a list of maybe 15 kinds of parks or facilities or, things like soccer fields and horseshoe pits and tennis courts and whatever, and then how many we had at any given time and what they're worth and the value. and then when it is that we're going to need another one or another something to fill that for the next growth. And that's all part of the level of service inventory that we keep to make sure that we're keeping up with that.
And that's one thing I'm not seeing reflected in Goal A currently is we address facilities, but we don't address no net loss of services, recreational services.
Right, and I'm not sure, that would be a question for the Parks Department on how they do that, or if they do that, or if it's, you know, as the bump of kids is getting older, do you have less preschool kinds of things because all of a sudden that bump is into middle school now, and now you need more, whatever it is that they do in, you know, in their classes and that kind of thing, and then maybe they get older, but that would be a good class, because I think the classes and, are more flexible because of the age groups and the different programs that they have versus the actual land and the, you know, hardscape things are harder to be flexible on. But we can certainly ask about that.
Tricia, if you do divide it into two goals, you can take that, all of those comments and all the more specific, put it into the policy underneath the goal, or however it goes. So you could address some of these issues right in that goal.
Right,
Or under that
certainly
goal.
be in the discussion on
Right.
the importance of all the different parts of no net loss. It's not just the land, but the function and the recreational pieces that are on the land and the,
So like
And maybe
describing the
programs, too.
level of service, maybe ensure no net park loss of, you know, and categorize the different level of service, whether it be as a function, whether it be a service, whether it be open space, whether it be like, I don't know, linear foot for each creek that, I don't know, something,
right, or trail, you know,
Trail,
feet,
yeah.
feet of trail, or,
whatever, yeah.
we can try, and again, it's policy, so the inventory will be one thing, but we can certainly aspire to not let any of it go lower than it is now, but to increase it as the population increases. Good discussion. Okay, anything else on that one? On the no net loss?
Well, my main issue with parks, and I didn't see it reflected in any of the goals, so I'm not sure where that would fit, and if anybody else agrees with me, is just, you know, whenever you take a park, you turn it into a big lawn, and it becomes a park. And I really would like to see more creative use and more ecologically friendly use of parks happening in the future. A big lawn to me is just an invitation for chemicals and, you know, and weeds, not for recreation. I mean, there's a need for some of it, definitely. You know, kids play frisbee and whatnot, but, you know, to have so many acres of just big lawn, open lawn with nothing offered, to me is a waste of opportunities.
Yeah, and I actually had a note very similar to that in terms of I didn't see really a goal, and this may be addressed when they have the sustainability section separate, but a goal related to parks, new parks having a reduced environmental impact and reducing the environmental impact of existing parks. So just kind of keeping that in mind when developing, at least as far as the environmental portion. I hadn't really considered the creativity portion.
So new parks having less environmental impact, and for existing parks, you mentioned that
Yeah,
that they
just
would
making
be-
sure that whenever we're making changes that we're doing, and just a general overall environmental conscientiousness. And I also had a note in there as far as utilizing native plants and low water usage plants wherever possible. So just general nativity and environmental friendliness.
I think I had that, I think that's in the next one, stewardship and balance, in the discussion emphasizing native and drought tolerant Special, that's supposed to be species.
You know, and now that I reread that,
Special
I
within-
see, yeah, so I think the native,
Special species within the
yeah, the
city
native
park.
plants then I think would be fine left out of goal A, because I think you're right, that is captured in B.
But I like the idea, though, that even existing parks, if they could become more environmental friendly when possible, that's a good thing. Okay. Any more on that one? On the first one? Okay. Stewardship and balance. This one is stewardship of all sorts of the parts of the historic, cultural, natural resources, in the form of the whole Parks and Recreation open space system that we have, and trying to balance that with the environmental protection. So this is partly what you raised, is getting closer to more environmental stewardship and cultural stewardship of the existing spots. You're right, integrated pest management is in that one too, with the herbicides and pesticides, Chantal, that you were making sure that there's not so many chemicals. Are there any additions to that one, or changes or thoughts?
My only thoughts as far as that one would be splitting the historic and cultural apart from the natural reserve, open space, conservational aspects.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, I had a,
Yes.
what, does this also cover, as far as stewardship goes, making sure that the machines that are used to care for the lawns or the open space, that we're pushing for more of an environmentally friendly use as well, like instead of a gas-powered leaf blower that runs for hours, or, you know, just,
That's a good one.
brooms.
When part of that is, you know, the lawn invites not only chemicals, but it also invites a lot of carbon emissions through all the maintenance and
That's
whatnot.
what I was
so.
thinking is, you know,
Yeah.
we were using one of the parks the other day, and the lawnmower guy drove by, and just the smell of the fumes was pretty overwhelming. And I was thinking, well, you know, the electric lawnmowers will eventually catch up with gas powered at some point. So what can we put today to help keep that in mind when it does become more of a viable option for that size of a project?
Yeah, I like that. Anything
I
else
just
on
have a
that one?
question about that. As we move toward battery in those types of equipment, the disposal of those batteries sometimes is as much of a problem as using the gas in the first place.
Right.
So it's a question of, you know, there has to be a balance there. You know, I don't think we should put into policy that gas-powered equipment should not be bought again.
Right. But maybe making steps towards, you know, as the technology is available and is sustainable, because you're not having these batteries that then we don't know what to do with. But that's a good point. I think that's still the sticking point for
It's a sticking point for a lot.
a lot of the vehicles and.
But, and I don't remember I think we discussed that earlier, but the city does have a goal to reduce its own carbon emissions, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, that would be part of that.
Right.
It would apply to all the maintenance equipment and all of
Right,
that.
because our fleet is certainly going that way, but I would think our maintenance pieces should be going that way as
Right.
well. I'll have to ask if that's considered part of our fleet. I would think it should be.
Well, then
'cause,
maybe we should expand the
yeah.
definition to make sure it does.
Okay, are we ready for the next one? Good stuff. partnerships. Now, this one, I did merge together. The original one was continue partnerships with local, state, and federal. And the second one was continue partnerships with schools, nonprofits, and groups. I thought, well, it's partnerships to me. And so I put them all together thinking, you know, why don't we just partner with everybody that we could partner with? So I didn't understand, and maybe Parks has a reason why they wanted them separate, but for now, it just seemed like we should shoot for all the partnerships that we can use to help us get more Parks and Rec for the community. But I'm happy to separate it again if there's completely something that I've missed at why they don't go together.
Actually, my only suggestion would be I think we can broaden it with significantly less wording if we make it local, state, federal, and regional agencies and non-governmental resources or something to that effect. And that way we can cut out the entire second sentence or just keep that last part of it to provide and manage.
And then maybe in the policies,
And
pull out
that-
the different,
Yeah.
so the first part would be,
In my head, it reads, continue partnerships with local, state, federal, and regional agencies and non-governmental resources to provide an excellent regional natural open space and park system and to provide and manage an excellent local natural open, actually, no, I guess that's the same wording exactly. So yeah, it would add in regional agencies and non-governmental resources and then a period after the first sentence.
does anybody have an issue with that? Is that, yes?
Gotta be honest. On that, on that issue, I don't know why you would shorten it. I gotta be honest, I don't know why you would take away the relationship with the school district, businesses, developers, nonprofits, no disrespect, to just, I mean, why not include that? The additional wording he used gave you the same number of words. If that's what we're trying to do, is just cut back on words. I mean, it is a partnership with a variety of entities.
Right,
Who are the entities? Put them out there.
right. And we could certainly put those in the,
Personal opinion.
the follow-up, the actual policies of what we're going to do with the partners, but either way works. You know, it's, and I know I tend to be more wordy than Kristen, for example. Her chapters are much more eloquently short than mine, but, you know, it's whatever you all want to put in the first draft.
I think the partnership with schools is really important. Personal experience, there was one, I live close to the high school, or Clark Elementary, and I have 2 young kids, and I told my kids we were going to the park, and so I walked the distance to the park. My kids were all excited, and then the fence was locked. And so I thought that it was like a community thing that we just couldn't really, and it was just during the day, you know, on a Saturday afternoon in the fall. And I just thought it was something that we couldn't even, you know, it was out in the open, and maybe there's a way that we can put fences around it so you can lock portion of when the school is in session.
Right.
You know, just something that we can, you know, everyone can use those parks that are meant for kids.
Right.
Okay, so that specific wording then being an emphasis towards the specific partnerships that we want is what I'm hearing.
What's wrong with that?
Yeah,
I think it's a good idea.
I think that's great when it's put that way, and I've come around on that. So
The one thing I think we all want to see is not to exclude any group.
Oh, right.
And maybe by being specific, that specific, it might exclude something. So I was just looking to actually add
To
something,
not,
so no group is excluded.
and that was actually my concern as well with just simplifying it so that things didn't get excluded. So if we added something after neighborhood groups just and other resources.
Entities. Instead of resources, that doesn't fit in there.
You know.
You already have organizations, so
Oh,
it
okay.
would be other entities.
Okay, good, I like that. Any other thoughts on that? And that's, I never realized that they would be locked on the weekends. That just seems odd, because I know the city does have a strong relationship with the school district that we share, you know, the times that the ball fields are open and the times that the lights are on and the times and so I know we have an interlocal agreement with using their fields and stuff, but I didn't ever think that they were actually locked.
Yeah, I don't know the times when they actually lock them, but I just thought it just seemed like.
I
it
can
was
see
just
like at
really
dusk or
locked down.
something, but not in the,
Really good security, and which is good, but I don't want to be so, I don't think it's necessary to be so security-minded that we're missing out on an opportunity to,
right? I mean, that's one of the beauties of
enjoy
living
the
near a school,
facilities. Yeah,
is to
exactly.
use the field, yeah.
Although if it is a school district property, the city can't control
True.
the school property, so.
True.
It all depends on the,
And I will say, having been involved with some cases involving trip and falls and things of that nature on school properties, having them open for extended periods, it's usually a risk management concern is usually where those closing hours arise.
Right. I
but
can
we
see that.
still want to partner with them, so that still works.
Right, we just have to tie up those little details, like, you know, like, I think they got rid of so many swing sets for a while because swing sets were causing issues, and it's like, how sad is that to not have swing sets anymore, but anyway, but we'll figure out how to work it out and remain partners with
So
them.
there is such a big difference between working with the state, local feds in the way of asking for grants and stuff. That's a very big difference than working with the other entities that are down there. So I'm assuming that underneath in the policies.
In the policies,
They're
right.
going to be more specific on, just at least mentioning the fact that the processes of how
Right,
the grants and the other areas that they can get funds to support the parks.
anything else? Anything else? Okay. Where are the next steps already?
I
Oh, okay.
that you were asking about that one specifically, but generally, what about trails? I mean, I know they're kind of part of parks, but
Yes.
they're not,
What
don't
ab-
they deserve a separate, so,
Oh, a separate goal?
yeah?
They could. I think they're,
Trains?
well, I don't know how to go backwards. I think they're part of the no net loss and that it's part of from the current slide, that they're considered in the bigger, but if you want in this no net loss to pull out that trails, that in order, also to increase parks and recreation facilities, that trails are something that we want to be sure increases with population as well as a facility.
So, trails there's many different jurisdictional issues with trails, right? This would only cover the trail that's within a park. I mean, it wouldn't cover the East Lake Sammamish Trail, for example. That would be King County King County Trail.
Right, we do have trails in our level of service though for parks.
So that would be.
So we
trails per-
count them as a park facility.
Right.
And like the Gilman Trail from whatever to whatever, that's considered and there's the shared use routes, from here, the one right here downtown, we get credit in our level of service for that. So we do treat them like a ball field or whatever, we
Right.
tally them and make more of them and try to get grants for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or maybe it
Is
would
that-
be a policy under this,
Okay.
I think.
Well, and I think I see what you're saying too. I mean, if we're going to split up Goal A into two separate goals, the second section reads parks, trails, and trail connections in natural and open spaces, which isn't enunciated as clearly in the first section of Goal A. And then the second section of Goal A doesn't include parks and plazas, land for parks and plazas, or plazas necessarily. So making sure just that when we split up Goal A, that we're including all the elements from each of those, because I think we both want to see those maintained and increased as we're able to acquire land.
At least in the policy part of it. So when we're talking about trails, I like the connections. Okay, it's in there.
Connection of trails.
If you're talking about bikers riding on trails, besides walkers, but bikers, you have, you want to be able to go from the city to the trail, so hopefully there's a connection and working together to provide.
Right, right, and that's part of the emphasis of the bike ped, is to make sure that we're looking at those, not just streets, but all the different ways of getting around,
Well,
whether you're walking or.
the trail connection sort of
Right.
covers that.
Good one.
So,
Anything else on any of the three?
Well, there's one more issue is we talk about, and you said there's been analyses of the relationship between growth in number of residents and trail. Has there been any studies on the kind of the equity issue related to parks that more affluent neighborhoods don't have more parks and less affluent neighborhoods, that they are well distributed? I think, if I'm picturing Issaquah, I'm picturing parks. I think they are, but
Well, when we did the central plan, we looked at which areas had neighborhood parks, the bigger ones. And that's why there's a few places in central Issaquah where we're requiring the developer to put in the bigger park, because there's none there. So not only do they have to do their mitigation for their own residents, but they also have to put in the bigger park. I think there's maybe 4 of them in the central plan. And so in that sense, we were trying to make sure that in areas that didn't have anything really that they could walk to, that we were providing one in the central plan. And we have to tweak it a little because we've never actually done it that way. We know that the Highlands required public use, but it's privately owned. And that's working out really well, but not so much on the valley floor where we have so many different landowners. And so you didn't have the master builder that kind of took care of that middle piece. So we're tweaking it a little bit, but it's so far with 7th and Gilman, we're getting a sort of a neighborhood park next to the creek. And that'll be sort of the first experiment to see. I think it's going to be a dog off-leash, a dog, whatever those are called. I'm getting the words in the wrong order.
dog park.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those. Not next to the creek, but over a little ways. So we'll see how that works, and we're kind of tweaking it as we go along. As people come in and try it out, we'll go, ooh, we should have thought of it this way, and because we do know that not all the parks have parks that you can walk to. And the other piece of that is the routes, so you can get to the different parks. That was a big part of the central plan, is that you could, not only are they there, but that you can walk and bike to them.
Right. Well, that is one area that is well thought of, but there may be other areas. I wanted just putting the word equitable distribution somewhere in the goal would cover that.
Okay, good one.
So if the city hires the correct person, the planner, what do you think the process will be, since it has to be done by a certain date?
Their deadline is also next year for adoption for their big plan, and so we would be working with them. We have a meeting with them at the end of, it's either the end of August or beginning of September, when they're hopefully supposed to have the new person, and to find out what their timeline is and how we can best combine with them to have it done at the same time. In worst case scenario, if they can't go as fast as we can go, we might have something for the public hearing I think our public hearing is scheduled in December. if we can't have enough of the element in what GMA is requiring by then, I'm not sure what our fallback would be, because, you know, we have to have a updated element for the state in 2015.
Okay, but the plan will come back here before the public hearing, so we get a
Oh,
chance to talk.
absolutely.
So
At
when
least
it
that's
comes-
our,
So when
right.
it comes back, could we have I know you have it for the central area plan of where the parks are going to be, but can we just, I know you have it, just the outline of where all the parks are in the city?
The existing parks?
Yeah,
And the
so
proposed-
that, you know, when you're looking at it, and then you can say, well, gee, you know, we really need this here, or, I don't know, just get a good idea of where the parks are.
And we have that in two places. There's one in the comp plan that shows, it's old though, it's 5 years old from the last update, where all the parks are. And then the central plan would go over that, because there's new ones on the central plan.
Well, and still, the
So we
the
need
big
the whole
park plan is going
conglomeration,
to have
yeah.
to have that anyway, so.
Right. So that there'll be an updated map in the new to show where all of them, and it'll have to show too, 10 years out, what we hope to have on the ground in 10 years for that next growth spurt for the 10 years that GMA requires. Which part of that's the central plan. You know, that's sort of the 25, 30-year plan is covered in the central plan, and we show all the new parks and plazas and things that we would like there. And I'm hoping too that when it comes to you in a fuller version, that we can have some people from the Parks Commission to help explain their thinking and their vision and how they want things to happen. Because, you know, they live and breathe it all the time, and so they have a really neat perspective on.
And I know that they'll
providing.
come and say, we thought of all those plans and we decided not to do it this way because, but we're trying.
Yeah, and I do think that would come in really handy for policy development too. I mean, when we're talking about equity, and this will kind of flow into the cultural element as well when we start talking about that. But we have, you know, City of Yakima is embroiled in a huge lawsuit now over voting rights, where one of their key pieces of evidence is distribution and quality of parks among income levels on neighborhoods. So
Wow.
that's something that we should be considering when we're looking at the actual policy development as well, and the maps will really help with that.
Yeah, good to know. And you mentioned cultural, the, knock on wood, the cultural element and the economic vitality element are supposed to be the next ones that we see. Not, in 2 weeks you have the training. You can either go the Thursday night that we're supposed to meet, or the Wednesday night before if you have plans on Thursday night. But those are the 2 nights that we have scheduled for the anti-harassment and a whole litany of other things to be trained for. And so we don't have a meeting on the 24th. So the next one is in August, and August is going to be a big month. One night is going to be cultural and economic vitality, and the other night is going to be housing element and human services. So it's going to be a really big shoe, as Ed Sullivan used to say.
So
Any
we're
of you
not going
remember
to,
Ed Sullivan? I'm dating myself.
we're not going to do the whole economic development plan, we're just taking the
Just
cultural
the
part of
element,
it.
just the element.
Yeah, just the element.
Because there's an economic vitality element and the cultural element.
Right.
But not the economic development plan. So we'll hear from them, because their commission's been working on it as well. So anything else? I think, does that cover, I can't remember now, it was on the last slide for next steps, but I think we covered it.
That's it?
Oh, I went too fast, goodness, I have been gone too long. From the current slide. Yes, I think we covered it. Anything else? Any other questions, thoughts, concerns, ideas?
I did ask Jason at the last meeting to bring back a copy of the TIP and the CIP so that they could understand the process and the order of how things are paid for.
Oh, for the capital facilities element? I
Right.
saw that in the minutes, actually. And when you said to bring it, you mean bring the process?
Well, I wanted you have the
Or the
card-
list?
Yeah, you already have the list and a short explanation, because there were some questions 2 weeks ago about how those plans are put together and how money is associated with each one of the,
Okay.
okay?
So, yeah. On the good news, well, I guess we didn't have a new commission yet for the Transportation Improvement Program. Our engineering manager comes in April every year to ask you all for your advice on the Transportation Improvement Program, and he has a list of all the projects, sidewalks, roadways, bridges. Oh my gosh, it's quite the night, and maps of where they all are and how many bazillions of dollars they all cost in the 6 years, and then he's got a 10-year program, and it's very illuminating, and we have it for PPC because he's been doing this with us forever. We started having him actually compare it to years before when we first had a big update of the transportation element. We had a whole new map and set of projects that we wanted in the future. So every year that he comes back to you, he has to tell us what he's done in the last year to help get that list completed. And so it helps us a lot to, because for a while it's like, did you build anything yet? And so now we actually compare it to that first update that we did, and it's kind of exciting when you look back and go, wow, every year you're clicking stuff off. So since you guys, that's true, they would have all missed it because nobody was here yet in April.
Yeah.
So we'll.
Carl and I.
Well, yeah, I
sat
mean,
through
the,
it
right. you
With
were-
somebody.
Except.
Right, no, I mean, the new folks
but-
are like, where did that big list come from? But it came from Chantal and Carl, help this year. But that's a real illuminator when Gary comes in and talks
No,
about
I
all this.
don't think I mean, they need a basic, just
Right.
a 5-minute explanation.
Right, not
so
the
that
whole
they-
Gary
when they
show,
go
but
into
how-
that kind of discussion, they're
Right.
on top of everything.
Right. So the
We
capital
are on top of
facilities
everything.
and the transportation and the process. But I'm going to put 5 minutes in parentheses.
Yeah, so if you could put that on the agenda next time, that would be great. I know it doesn't go into the cultural element, but both.
Is it- Right, right. So the capital projects would be like how parks get funded and all the other hard, police cars and that kind of stuff, whereas the TIP is transportation, it's bridges, roads, trails, that kind of thing. Okay, anything else? Super, see how good this was tonight? Another
We'll
bit
make
of
up for it
education.
next time. We'll
What?
have it much longer next time.
Yeah, sadly, I think, and I'm trying to remember which is next time. Is next time cultural or is next time housing? And I think
Cultural.
next time is cultural and,
Oh, yeah.
and economic. I just
Cultural.
know they're all in August, so I haven't quite got my head around
If
August yet.
there's no other input, I'm going to close the meeting at 7:23.
Good job.
Thank you and good night.
Has anybody come down to the Concerts on the Green?